is Deborah Wright from NBN Television. Congratulations on the growth and thank you for your presentation today. I'm just interested in knowing what next. What's next for Xero?
Look, I think the exciting thing from our perspective, it's still early days. We talk about market share. We still consider, approaching 200,000 customers in Australia is still single digit. So the big challenge we have both as an organisation, I think also economically in this country, is educating small businesses about the opportunities to drive productivity. It's a big sector, so we still consider it early days. Look, for us, it is about continued innovation. 2015 for us is a big year. We think we'll get close to finishing the horizontal platform of accounting. So accounting is a big product to build. Some of our competition have been at it for 20 plus years. So there's elements like inventory management. We've just released online quotes. There's a range of key features that have been missing that we're releasing. The other thing that we're doing is core to our business model is always putting the advisor in the centre of everything that we do. We're all about amplifying the value of the advisor. So we've recently been working on, last 2.5 years, building a tax platform so that we can lodge electronically with the ATO. So that's coming into its final stages. We think that's going to be really game-changing, providing big productivity gains for advisors, accounts, bookkeepers, being able to lodge electronically. And then just continuing that innovation. I think if you look out, and sorry, a bit of a long answer, but I think if you look out a few years, the real opportunity is the data that we have. Clearly there's strong privacy overlays, but we know, and I'll use the term we know with care, because we actually don't get access to data, but we know how much a company spends on advertising. We know when a new employee starts. We know when a PC is in the third year of its lease. Now, we know that with a strong privacy overlay. In the hands of an advisor or a business owner to be able to tap into that data and make informed business decisions based on real-time view of what's happening is incredibly powerful. So it's the power of that big data, but of course, again, we want to always put the customer in control of how they utilise that data. So that's the big play for us, is actually providing real-time insights into data to improve business decision-making.
Hi, my name is Jo Tonkin from Momentum Business Improvement Specialists. As innovative companies, do you also innovate in terms of how you reward your team, for example, profit share?
Well, we're a fairly new company, so we're only 5 years old and we're privately owned, so we do have an employee share scheme that we've got. The diversity of the staff means you have to come up with diverse ways of rewarding because all people behave differently. Some people like the recognition, other people, technical people don't want the recognition. So for a lot of people it's being given the main motivation would be to give the freedom for them to explore some of their ideas and a level of support that allows it to explore that sort of stuff. So a certain amount of time, certain amount of money to be able to do those sorts of things certainly motivates a lot of the team that we have.
I mean, at the moment, we're sort of, as a group, we still sort of primarily work on sort of salaries, but culturally, throughout the whole of M&C, there's a lot of activity that kind of rewards staff in different ways. I think as we move towards that third horizon, though, that sort of the business of creativity, what we're looking at is ways of actually rewarding people for bringing their ideas forward so they become stakeholders in them. And that gives them sort of an encouragement to bring those ideas forward and then for us to help them sort of grow. So, yeah, we're open to being flexible with that.
Hi, Tara from Thurnham Tees. This question's for Ben and or Roger. Just wondering, when your teams are working on their projects, do they work on just one thing in isolation at a time, so day in, day out they're doing project X, or do you share their time across multiple projects and therefore different concepts and ideas at any one time?
For us, it's a bit of both. So you'll have a dedicated project manager that'll often be looking after one particular project depending on the size of it. For some of the other team, depending on their expertise, they'll be spread across multiple. So if we've got good industrial designers, they'll be involved heavily at one part of the project, then they may come back out and then go back in at different times, and that spreads. So there is a consistent team normally, and our projects grow and then shrink back, and then we manage to load across that.
Yeah, we're quite similar. Our leads are project director and a customer experience director, and those two sort of work as the core, and then everyone else sort of comes in and out as a project squad. Because what you find is your natural stages emerge, and so you can bulk the team up and then come back down again. So at the moment, essentially we've got 2 projects on at the moment, and there's dedicated teams on each one, so those people are 100%, but the others might come in and out on effort levels.
Ben, I loved hearing about the Optus story. Did they come to you with the brief of, here's the vision, here's where we want to go, or was that part of the whole creative piece that you did for them? Because I thought it was great because they were so defined by the market share that Telstra had and how good they are in this rural area and so forth. Did they give you the brief or the context or the vision, or was that part of what you came up with?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I think every telco has the same problem, which is their network is invisible until it doesn't work. And so every year we sort of get the big brief, which is make the intangible tangible. That year it was basically looking at it radically differently. And really the fact of shifting that conversation from kind of the network to what you do with it. It just so happened that in this instance, actually, it's quite interesting because I really enjoyed the science of innovation. And it's funny because we've got a lot of those processes, but in the instance of Cleverboy, it was almost a eureka moment. And then actually the science came afterwards. The rigour of actually working out if we could do it came afterwards. But it was almost like the creative team that came up with it was like, what if we could? And then we realised that the shark nets hadn't been reviewed for 60 years. We realised that, in fact, they weren't even proved as a method. And suddenly, actually, the reason for that idea to exist kept growing all the time. The funny thing is, when you walk into a marketing team with an idea such as that, there's a lot of people going, can we do that? And so when normally you're doing an advert or whatever, so a lot of bravery to allow it to happen. And in truth, it took a very long time, and we had to be ring-fenced and we had to be sort of almost left alone to make it happen, because going through the layers, you can imagine a lot of people are looking at it going, why are we going into shark detection again? But obviously you can see now that it's proven by the network. It can't work without the network. And that's where it really resonates, and now we're pushing forward with the development.
Hey guys, we'd just like to say we're getting some really innovative shots now. They're much better because you guys are black and silhouette. It's sort of more
no problem.
A pretty lady on the end, but you guys do look better as silhouettes. 3, 2, 1, you're live, Hap.
Hi, thank you all for your excellent presentations. Heidi Alexandra from UQ Power. So we're company culture architects, and often it's challenging having discussions about what is the softer skills, the softer side of business. I like, Helen, how you talked about stamping out the fluff with science. But I'm more than anything delighted at seeing how the culture and getting the culture right is number one for each and every one of you. So my question is, I'm curious about when you go to consult or work with other companies who do have members of the leadership team that don't see the value or weight in that. How do you start that conversation? Do you continue with that client or not?
Okay, you can handle that.
Whoa.
Look, I think the thing is, it's really interesting because we're creating environments that can allow clients to come and work in a different way in our space. So I wouldn't say we've sort of turned anyone away at the moment, and that's not purely a dollar thing. It's really the fact that, we use that shifting exercise quite well, and it's interesting because what you find is that people that default say that they're not creative, which is often happens in a room when you're a creative agency, actually really find their legs and really find the fact that they're contributing to what's being grown. And that, to me, is the most exciting thing, is the fact that you become a partnership. I think ultimately, creating environments where this stuff can happen, and also ideas can be left up. That's half our challenge, is actually having spaces that can be dedicated project rooms for the duration of a job. So you can leave your brain in the room, for want of a better description, and you can go off and think laterally for a moment and then come back. That's a real challenge. But ultimately, bringing people in from all walks of life, the excitement is actually showing everyone that they can be innovative and everyone that they can be creative.
might just add to that. Do you mind if I try that one? Thanks. I've definitely had some recent experiences actually working with clients where the top leadership isn't actually really engaged in the journey. And in that situation, we're sort of working with a lower level of leadership to help with, softly influencing, I suppose, the leaders at the top. So that is definitely a challenge because the culture is very much, driven by the head of the fish. I love that quote. And so it's something that we just try our best to work with. But to be honest, in terms of if we're really doing a transformation project with an organisation, we're trying to transform how they do business through innovation, we need to have that leader at the top completely engaged, open to being challenged, and I guess on the same page with the fact that they can actually be disrupted. There are people out there who don't necessarily realise that they can be disrupted, and they need to be thinking about what's going on in the industry and thinking about doing things differently. So yeah, leadership is absolutely critical from that perspective.
I'd just add one thing to that. So I think your culture can permeate outside of the organisation. I don't want to sound like we're cool kids on the block or anything, or self-serving, but we spend a lot of time at Xero thinking differently about how our brand and the culture really influences the industry. We work in an industry that, in accounting and bookkeeping, that's considered pretty conservative. It was actually a surprise to me 4 years ago when I joined it that actually, yes, it's really conservative, but there's actually some really cool accountants out there. And one of the things that struck us, I'll just give you one example. We've got a lot of musicians in Xero, and we have an annual conference. And one of the things that occurred to us after the second year was, hey, wouldn't it be really cool if we got our staff with accountants and bookkeepers on stage playing rock and roll at this conference? And so now XeroCon is a celebration of rock and roll in accounting. We turn accountants and bookkeepers into rock and roll stars. And it sounds really funny, but it's incredibly powerful as a symbol to say, we actually think this is a really cool industry. We're really passionate about accountants and bookkeepers and their image as these sort of staid, boring, conservative people. But in fact, I found it quite the opposite. There's maybe it's these conferences, maybe they don't get out much and they go hard when they party at XeroCon, but it is a big event on our calendar, and it's hugely fun. So we're about celebrating, helping that culture permeate out and have a really positive impact on the industry that we're part of.
And can I just add, Heidi? If you go to a business and the leader is not engaged, it's like oil and water. You keep resisting. You keep resisting. It's just going to be resist. So, when you go to a business and they're not engaged, mate, it is really, really tough. If you're more engaged than them, mate, there's a big problem. It'll fizzle out. Even if that second tier level comes up, they'll lose trust, faith, and anything else. It'll fizzle away. So it's a big one. And I've seen examples of it. I see it all the time.
But I think, Paul, to some extent, we all battle that every day of the week, whether it's internal within your own organisation, resistance to some of the things, or external with a client. And, sometimes you've got to fight a battle, and other times you need to be more subtle in the way you want to influence that. And sometimes by finding, an area of the business to demonstrate what you want, allow leadership to see that and then adopt that themselves in their own time and make them the champions of it. It's a bit political to do that, but sometimes you just need to be a bit smarter, I think, on how you approach those things.
Thank you very much. Could you thank our panel again, please?